Hi, it's Mike with AskTractorMike.com. Most of my videos regard tractor usage. And most of my audience are people that own small tractors, and they moved out to the country and bought a small acreage, and they're using the tractor to manage their land. And if that's you, I'm going to give you 5 things you can do today to improve your land management practices. It'll hopefully save you some money, help out the wildlife and the pollinators, and give you a place that you're proud to show to your friends. Let's get started. In my near 30-year career in the tractor business, one thing I've seen is folks that have moved out to the country. They go out there and they buy a small tractor and they want to slick off that land so it all looks like a yard or a golf course. And so they'll buy a tractor and a bush hog or brush hog or finish mower, and then they'll go out and they'll knock down everything that's there, and it looks beautiful, and I get that. And if you're raising livestock, that may be the way you want it. Problem with that is so many of us have moved out to the country. We've carved up the farm ground into smaller plots, and we've slicked it off, and we've destroyed the habitat for wildlife. And that's the wildlife you hunt and the pollinators that make farm crops possible. And today I'm going to give you an alternative to that will save you some time and money, and I hope get you an area great for wildlife, the kind you hunt and the kind that helps us all eat. Now, I'm going to tell you up front, I'm a tractor guy. I'm not an entomologist. I'm not an agronomist. I'm not a botanist. But I know what's worked on my place. And on my place, I've got kind of a unique situation here, and I'll show you my property. I've got a house that sits at the back of a 20-acre plot. And so there's a long driveway down my pasture to get to my house. Now, if you're into wildlife plots, you know wildlife plots look a little rugged to the casual observer. They don't look like a mowed lawn, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I don't like that manicured look in my pasture until the end of the season, when all the pollinators are hibernated, they're gone, they're dormant, they're underground, wherever they are, and then I slick down the land and it looks good all winter long. But during the year, it looks like this. And this is my pasture. And what I've done when I moved here is I have managed my property for the pollinators and for the wildlife. And I've got turkey and deer and a little bit of everything. I've got a hawk that lives out there that's big enough to probably take me off someday. But there's plenty of food out there for everybody and plenty of cover. And there's voles that run down underneath all of these plants, and that's good food for the birds and the hawk. And there's some bald eagles around my area too, and I'm sure it's good food for them. But let's talk about 5 things you can do to get a place that has plenty of food for everything to eat and still looks nice. And the very first thing you can do is to know what's out there. Know what you're cutting if you're bush hogging or mowing with a finish mower. And there's an app that you can get on your phone that I highly recommend called PlantNet. And PlantNet is free, and it's, the way I understand it, it's put together by a bunch of botanists that know their stuff. And so what you do is you load it on your phone, and it works on either a Droid or an iPhone, and then you take a picture of the plant. Now that could be the leaf of the plant, the flower of the plant, any part of the plant, and you tell it this is the flower or this is the leaf or whatever it is. And then it gives you what it likely is. And they've got over 46,000 plants logged in PlantNet. So the first thing I urge you to do is go out and get some pictures of the stuff you see growing in your pasture. And find out, is that something that's native, something I want, is something good for the wildlife, or is that an invasive species? Second thing you can do is brush hog the stuff you don't want. And what I've done here, when I moved to this place, we had a ton of autumn olives, and we had a lot of locust trees. And the good thing about those is the wood is soft, and if you bush hog them, eventually you kind of control them. They kind of die back. The bad thing about them is they're very, very prolific and very, very invasive. And I have kept on them till I've just got a handful of them growing in my pasture that I keep for wildlife. And so that has helped me maintain the plants I want and get rid of the plants I don't want. So when you're bush hogging, aim for the plants you don't want. And that brings me to point number 3, leave the plants you do want. Now it's going to look kind of funny. I've got a neighbor that accuses me of drunken bush hogging. And I've never ever gotten on a tractor or bush hog when I've had anything to drink, so I don't do that. But what I do is I meander through my pasture and I hit the stuff I don't want, the stuff I want to control. And I take it down when it's in full leaf, when it's at its peak. And I think by doing that, I've managed to control some of the invasive species a little bit. And what I've taken down has been the locust trees. I've got a pretty good stand of poison hemlock. I go after that. I occasionally go after blackberries. There's a plant called multiflora rose that the conservation department blessed us with. There's a plant called Cerisa lespedeza that the highway department blessed us with that we don't need in this area, and I'll go after those plants, but I'll try to leave all I can of the good plants. And so point number 1 is know what you're cutting. Point number 2 is go after the bad plants, and point number 3 is leave the good plants. The fourth point I'll make is to leave the slopes for the wildlife. One of the most frequently asked questions I get is how steep a slope is too steep to bush hog. And I'll always tell people the same answer. If you feel uncomfortable bush hogging on the slope, don't go there. It's not worth it. Leave that for the wildlife. The wildlife could care less if it's a steep slope. Leave the plants that are there. Now, if you have to go up and spot cut or spray the plants you don't want up there and kill them off, or maybe throw some seed out for the plants you want and burn off the rest of the area at the end of the season, which burning helps some of these native plants, then do that. But don't take your tractor and bush hog up there and risk your life if you do a tractor rollover. You know, if you've got your roll bar up and your seatbelt on, there's a very, very good chance you'll survive a tractor rollover, but who wants a tractor rollover? Is it worth it to make that slope look groomed? And I say it's not, so don't go there. And finally, the number 5 thing I'll tell you is to change your bush hogging practices. And this encompasses several different things I'll tell you. The first thing I'll tell you is if you're cutting, don't cut too low. If you're grinding up rocks, you're cutting too low. I like to cut around 4.5 inches above the ground, and that gets me over most of the rocks. And believe me, in the Missouri Ozarks, there are tons of rocks, and they're right above the ground. If you pick them all up, a year later, you'll have a whole new crop. They come out of the ground in the winter. And I don't ever hit a rock. They're there, I run over them, but I'm mowing high enough I don't hit them. What you're trying to do is not to kill the plant, but just to take the seed heads off of the undesirable plants and not let them reproduce. And the undesirable plants, cut them when they're at their peak and stunt them, so maybe they'll die and not come back. Now, I know that's wishful thinking, but it does help in control. But if you cut too low, if you cut down to 1 or 2 inches, you're going to grind up a lot of rocks and stumps, and you're going to be replacing bush hog blades and doing maintenance on your tractor, and you're also going to stunt the grass that's there. And I like to manage my pasture for horses that graze here, and they get enough grass and a variety of different plants that they eat to be healthy and have slick coats all summer long. They look great and they never lose weight. But I don't want to kill the grass because there's plenty of grass here that they get underneath the native plants. So that's another thing you can do, is to change your height. Now, another thing I recommend you doing, and this has been missing in my management system for a long time, my pasture has always looked really rough to people that are driving down my driveway going back to my house, which sits at the back of a 20-acre field. This year, I've cut under my fence with my lawnmower and my weed eater, and I've got the fence area looking great. This is what it looks like. It looks well kept. On the other side is material I've not bush hogged, but when you cut the fence and make it clear, it makes what's behind it look like you intended it to be that way. And I really like the way this looks. I've got it cut this way down my driveway, and I've got it cut this way next to the road. So it looks pleasing to the people that are going by on the road and the people that are going by on my driveway. And finally, cut trails. When you're going through your pasture with your brush hog and you're trying to hit those woody plants and those undesirable plants, you're going around, and then you try to miss a native wildflower, you're going around and making a trail. And a trail is, to me, is really pleasing. If you want to get on a four-wheeler or a utility vehicle or mule and go around that place, it's great to go through those areas, and you actually get to see up close the wildflowers without getting off and getting into the ticks and chiggers that we have in this area. And finally, a great resource for information on food plots, wildlife plots, and native pollinators is your conservation department and your local extension service. Your land-grant universities, your state universities have what's called an extension service, where they reach out to people that need information on raising everything from garden plants to wildlife plots and things like that. Reach out to them and find out what works in your area and what they recommend. But I think a lot of times, the folks that are going out, knocking it all down with a bush hog, spraying it all to kill it, plowing it up, and then putting seed in, are actually making a situation a lot worse and a lot more expensive than it needs to be. There are around 10 to 14,000 weed seeds in every square foot of ground. So if you bush hog that ground off, kill the vegetation that's there, plow it, you've got everything on a level playing field when you seed the seeds you want, and they're going to be competing with the weed seeds you don't want. So I think a better choice is to go out, bush hog down the stuff you don't want, see what's there, know the plants, and let them grow, and keep doing that over a period of years. And pretty soon you've got a nice wildlife habitat, and it didn't cost you a penny. Appreciate you watching my videos. If you'd like to subscribe to my YouTube channel, I'd be honored. Just click the mic face icon and check the bell so you're notified when I post future videos. Here's a link to my website and the Tractor Fun Store with cool things for sale for the tractor owner that helps support my channel. And here's another couple of videos you might want to watch. Thanks for watching.